Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Embracing Joy podcast. I have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Carolina Sueldo, and we're going to talk about empowering women with fertility education, which is such an important topic, and we have an expert with us today. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Carolina.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and share this space with you.
Thank you. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Carolina. So she is a double board certified OB-GYN and fertility specialist currently practicing in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She completed her OB-GYN residency training at UCF Fresno and her fellowship in reproductive endocrinology and infertility at the University of Connecticut. She previously worked at a very large fertility practice in South Florida for 3 years and had been in Central California from 2018 to 2023. She returned to South Florida to serve the South Florida community about 2 years ago when she opened the doors to her boutique fertility practice, Ceibo Fertility Center. Dr. Sueldo has been a speaker at national meetings as well as international speaking invitations throughout Latin America. She's spoken in Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, and most recently, the Dominican Republic. She's a board member for the Latin American Reproductive Member Association, and she's passionate about empowering women through education about their infertility. And you can even find her on your local news channel and on podcasts like ours, the Embracing Joy podcast, or on various sites online, speaking and educating and empowering women. So thank you for sharing your expertise with our audience here today. Before we get into all of that, we play a quick improv game, which is called convergence. So we'll say the first word that comes to our mind on the count of three, and I'll do the count. Okay, one, two, three. Pregnant.
Hope.
Okay, so pregnant came to my mind, and hope came to your mind. So something that connects those two. Okay, that is also the first word that comes to your mind. Okay, one, two, three. Fertility.
IVF.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. My brain was thinking IVF, but I was like fertility treatment. Okay, so let's say with fertility and IVF, something that combines those two. You ready? But each. Okay. One, two, three. Embryo.
Perseverance.
Perseverance. Okay. All right. Perseverance and embryo. Something that connects those two together. And the first one that comes to your mind. One, two, three.
Success.
Baby.
Oh, I
Yeah.
was
Woo.
thinking baby too. I
Well,
feel like baby and success are pretty darn close.
right. I think we can end it there. I think that because we're all on the same pathway, and the after fertility treatments, this the success of that is a baby. So I think that's a good place to start and to go into our questions because Dr. Carolina, since you're so passionate about empowering women through fertility education, what are some of the biggest misconceptions you see women have about their fertility? And
Yeah, I
how
love
does
this
the
question.
education help their
Yeah.
mindset?
There's so many misconceptions that are out there today. Probably the number one myth that I fight online or through my education is that birth control caused my infertility. There is a lot of misrepresentation of specifically the birth control pill, but contraception in general, and what it can do or what it can't do. And I like to educate around the fact that birth control has now been around a long time. since around the 50s, and we've made great strides in terms of the hormones that we're using, the doses that we're using. And there's really no data to suggest that birth control pills have any long-term consequences on fertility specifically. Now, what is true is that many women get started on birth control pills for a reason. For example, irregular cycles, heavy periods, really painful periods, etc. And there are several other indications. And so with that, when you come off of the birth control pill, whatever the underlying reason for starting sort of flares back up again. So it's really not the birth control pill itself that caused infertility, but many times was the underlying reason for starting them in the first place. The second myth that I really, struggle with online is that if you see a fertility specialist, that you're committed to IVF or in vitro fertilization. And I really like to educate around this because a lot of times patients are scared to come in because they think if they do, they're going to have to do IVF. And I want to just put that to bed. The thought is that most fertility specialists have an entire toolkit of different testing and treatment options. And so really seeing a fertility specialist is about empowering yourself and educating yourself about what's going on with your body so that you can then make the decision that feels right for you. Now, IVF is an amazing tool of modern medicine that affords us, a chance of success for many patients to become parents that we weren't able to offer even as soon as 10 or 15 years ago. So it is a great advancement, but it doesn't mean that every single patient needs IVF. And so it's really about getting down to the root cause and understanding what is going to be the best treatment option for your particular case. And then probably number 3, if I have to give you my top 3, is that if I eat super clean and I'm super healthy and I work out every day, that infertility is not going to impact me. And so I really love to educate around this. And I 100% believe in the whole person approach to fertility. And even from the very new patient consult, I'm going to be talking to you about your lifestyle, about your sleep habits, about integrative medicine like supplements or acupuncture. So that is an important component to optimize chances. But remember that infertility does not discriminate. Remember that the biological clock is real. Ovarian aging is real, no matter how healthy you eat, no matter how clean, your diet is, etc. And in our society, I think we have, as a culture, really sort of pushed the career path for women. And we have pushed sort of normalizing this concept of 40s or the new 30s. I love all those memes on Instagram showing the celebrities now versus the celebrities like in the 80s or 90s. And it's wonderful that we've been able to do that, but understanding that from a biological standpoint, that the fertility line is real. And
I think our signal is cutting off just a little bit. We'll give it a moment.
Okay. Where did I cut off for you? I can repeat it.
So that the biological clock is real was the last part that you said.
Yeah. So the biological clock is real. No matter how healthy you are, there is going to be a decline in fertility. And so while optimization is super important and should be talked about, it's not the only piece. And so we really want to be proactive about our family building journeys.
Well, thank you for that information, because I think people do have those questions of, if I do all the right things, then why should I have an issue as far as eating right, lifestyle changes? They think that's enough, but there's medical options that can treat them with like you provide. Also, so your practice, Ceibo Fertility Center, which is here in Miami, for our listeners that are in Miami or in South Florida, her practice is in Fort Lauderdale. How does your approach differ from larger practice? And what role does that personalized education play in helping women feel more supported during their fertility journey?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to understand that when you're looking at a fertility clinic, when you're looking for a fertility physician, who your doctor is matters, who your clinic is matters, because we actually have data mainly from the Northeast, coming where there's a lot of coverage for IVF. And so the financial burden is taken away. And so now you're able to assess other factors that are not the economical. And what we found is that patients who have a better rapport with their doctor and a better communication with their clinic are more likely to stay in treatment and more likely to ultimately be successful. So when I was envisioning Ceibo, where it really stemmed from was sort of almost a unanimous complaint of, well, I'm going to this place because it supposedly has the best success rates, but I never talk to the doctor. My nurse is handling a million patients and, doesn't really know what's going on with me. Or maybe I send a message and I get a response, 5 days later, whatever the case may be. And that not only can impact care, right? Because if you're getting late instructions or wrong instructions, it can definitely impact care. But also there's a huge mental load that comes with the fertility journey. And so having the added stress of that inaccessibility or lack of communication really can play a role in the patient staying in treatment and ultimately being successful. And the third thing I would just say that I see a lot of is that every patient's journey should be individualized. And if we tried something and we weren't successful, the question I'm always going to pose is, okay, what are we doing differently the next time, right? I don't want to see somebody who's gone through 4, 5, 6 different treatment cycles and they were done the exact same way every single time with no variation, with no change to the stimulation treatment, to the medications. We want to at least go through the thought exercise of what am I doing differently to try and enhance this patient's chances. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to work, but at least we've done it intentionally and with reflection before we just go into another attempt. So I think that
more likely to work in that case, even though, right, because you're making a change, so it's more likely to work. Yeah.
right. So I
Mhm.
think, I think my patients would be better equipped to answer this question than me. But what I can speak to from the clinic side is that, we really take to heart trying to understand the patient's individual case. If they've done testing or treatment elsewhere, what did that look like? And how are we going to change the treatment plan? And also thinking about what makes the patient comfortable, right? So I had a consult today and they're like, look, IVF is very scary. It feels very overwhelming. So if you're just looking at the medical parameters, you would say, yes, this patient is a candidate for IVF. But when you take into the financial, the psychosocial component, maybe it's a patient who really wants to take a more holistic approach and really try a more natural type of path. It's really individualizing that care, right? And so what I envision for myself as the healthcare doctor is I'm really going to be sort of that supporter and I'm going to hold your hand through the process, but I'm going to present you with the options. And at the end of the day, it has to be your decision. I want the patient to feel empowered to understand the information enough to be able to choose the decision that's going to feel right for them.
Mhm. And that's great because not every doctor wants the best for their patients, but your practice is, they may not have the time that you have with patients because your practice is boutique and you're able to kind of individualize what's offered to each patient and spend more time with each individual patient as the MD with more advanced knowledge about the procedures that you offer rather than, a place where the doctor's seeing so many patients that they don't have time to explain each individual option as you do. So I think that's a great difference that you have from other facilities.
Yeah, I
Um,
always like to say most physicians went into medicine because they want to help people, right? Most of us, our heart is in the right place. But when you're in an infrastructure that doesn't allow you to be able to spend that time for a myriad of reasons, or that there's a lot of cross coverage between doctors, right? And so there's a lot of doctors taking care of a lot of different patients, again, for a number of reasons. So it's not good. Like, doctors are not bad, right? Like they want to do good, they want to care for their patients. It just depends on the model. And for some patients, that's okay, right? I think that some patients are going to want sort of a larger center with more brains that can kind of, work together or whatnot. So I think everyone's going to have their pros and cons. But I think
mhm.
for the patient that's looking for a more personalized experience with a not so high volume experience where they come in, they're going to see the same faces all the time. It's the same team, it's the same physician, etc. I think this is definitely a great practice for them.
Mhm. Thank you for explaining that difference because it does make a huge difference for the people that want that personalized care. So you speak frequently nationally and internationally, and you've seen kind of firsthand how there's cultural and societal pressures about how women view fertility, right? Sometimes there's stigma associated with it.
Definitely.
How can we move the conversation like from fear and shame because some people may feel fearful to even share their fertility journeys to be more empowered and to be more informed about their choice to
Yeah.
seek treatment?
Yeah. So there's a couple different parts to this answer.
Mhm,
One part I'll start with is that I will forever be grateful to Hollywood for normalizing the conversation around egg freezing, for normalizing the conversation around IVF and using in vitro fertilization to build your family, for normalizing conversations around the use of a gestational carrier and third-party reproduction. So I think we've made a ton of advances in that regard.
mhm,
The double-edged sword to that is then management of expectations, right? Because then there's sort of this false sense of, well, I'll just do IVF and it'll just work, or I'll just get a gestational carrier and it'll just work. And sort of
mhm.
that solves all the problems. So there needs, for me, at the most fundamental level, instead of talking about sex education and pregnancy prevention, we really need to be talking about reproductive education and educating both boys and girls or men and women on what's normal and not normal about their bodies.
Mhm,
Literally, there's a talk that I give to physicians, attorneys, architects, postgrads. I mean, even the most educated women in our society, and the talk is literally what is normal and not normal about your menstrual period. That's it. And like,
mhm,
what is normal and not normal about the biological clock? And that's it. Like, if you can understand these 3 or 4 foundational concepts, then I have done my job, right? And so I
mhm,
really think shifting the conversation around that. I do still think we have a lot of work to do. I think we've come a long way. I do still think there's a lot of work to do, particularly with some of the nuances. So, for example, it's really interesting to me, gestational carrier. So this is somebody who's carrying the baby for somebody else. This
mhm,
is a rather socially accepted norm, at least here in the United States. Now, when you start talking about egg donation or sperm donation, so where the egg source or the sperm source is going to be from somebody else, that's a
mhm,
whole other conversation. And then when you move outside of the United States, depending on what region of the world you go to, there's going to be normative differences on what's culturally acceptable or not acceptable, not only as it relates to third party reproduction, but even as it relates to fertility treatment. And I come back to it's really about educating at a very foundational level that's going to allow us to move the needle forward with the more advanced concepts. And so until we sort of start at that foundational level, I think we need to continue to do that work. Every year for National Infertility Awareness Week, I pledge to speak to 10 women's groups for free. So anybody who wants me to come and speak, I'm happy to come and do that virtually or in person because I deeply believe in that mission so much. My long term, if you could say sort of what's my legacy, what do I want to leave in this world, is us changing the conversation around pregnancy prevention to really understanding our reproductive biology because many patients are not learning about that until the first time they walk into my office in their 30s or 40s.
mhm. Yeah, I think that's such a powerful and needed mission that you have to educate women and men about our reproductive system rather than our, just simply sex education. Sex education is a small portion
Right.
of our health, of our bodies, so we need to know more about our bodies and the systems. So thank you for what you do. If anybody's listening and they want to have Dr. Carolina Sueldo join or speak to their organization, please, at the end of this video, we'll have her contact information. So reach out that way. So with that being said, I think that's a great place to end our questions about empowering women with fertility. and we'll go into a little bit about joy. So, who is a model for joy in your life, Dr. Carolina, and why?
So, what's fascinating is I was trying to think about it, and like I didn't really have a lot of examples of that growing up. I had
Mhm.
really great examples of hard work ethic. I had really great examples of like, delayed gratification and like putting your head to the ground and really just, digging in and doing the work and striving and persevering, but not really a lot of examples of joy. And so, what's been interesting in my journey now in adulthood, and particularly I would say in the last 3 to 4 years, as I have begun to explore more the world of coaching and life coaching, and frankly, my journey of entrepreneurship, because it was such a departure from, what was known, what was safe, what was stable, and really having to dig deep within myself. So I have now, I would say in the last 3 or 4 years, found 2 or 3 specific people who understand joy, who live joy, and who transmit that to me, right? So those people that come into your light and they're just like this bright light, and they really give you kind of they just feed your soul. Those are those people for me. And I would definitely say since becoming a parent, I've been much more equipped to be able to like those small moments with my sons. I have 2 small children, so my 2 boys, and just enjoying like the small moments of the everyday, right?
Mhm.
And for me, like one of the biggest joys and one of the most satisfying things that like just makes me happy and nourishes my cup is like that 30 minutes when I get to read to both of them snuggled up on the couch before bedtime. And it wasn't meant to be an intentional habit. It's sort of just, we did it one day, then we did it a second day, and then it kind of turned into this thing. And now it's our thing. And mommy, it's time to read now. Like it's, specific to me. And it's like our thing that we do. And it brings me so much joy and it's so fulfilling. And it's just a simple little thing.
That's beautiful. And if you were baking a cake of joy, a metaphorical cake, what would be the top three ingredients?
Yeah. So I think number one would be communication.
Mhm.
And I think when I've been able to have, whether it's verbal or nonverbal communication, that has always been the precursor to joy.
Mhm.
Calm. I very much need a very calm environment to kind of dial down the frequency and tap into that joy.
Mhm.
I cannot be in an excited or stimulated environment. My brain just goes, too far.
Mhm.
So those would be the two. And then I had a third and I don't remember.
Connection. Oh, okay.
Connection. So connection
Mhm.
is at the core of all of it. For
Mhm.
me, when I think about my moments that were most joyful or the moments that I had joy in my life, it was always a moment of connection with another. So when I was in nature by myself, there was definitely a sense of peace. But when I think of joy, I really think of connectivity for me. So connection, communication, and calm. Those would be my 3 ingredients for that
And
joy.
I love that they're all C's like your name, Carolina, and also for Ceibo, which is
That's
your
right. That's right.
fertility center. So, how is it best for the audience to find you if they wanted to learn more?
Yeah.
First, for
Thank
patients,
you
if
so
they
much for
wanted,
that question.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
first
So the
for
best way to
patients.
reach me is through our website,
Yeah.
ceibofertilitycenter.com. And I think we're going to put all the links in the show notes, right?
Yeah.
Afterwards. So the link will be there, but ceibofertilitycenter.com. We have a web inquiry form. We have our phone number there. You're also welcome to go follow me on social. We have a practice Instagram and Facebook account, and then also my own, Dr. Carolina Sueldo. That's a little bit more about like just being a doctor and the life behind the scenes and the speaking events and the podcast interviews and all of that. So yeah, both are fun and both are out there and easy to reach.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Carolina. It's been such a pleasure. And I think we all learned a lot about the importance of empowering women with knowledge about their fertility. We learned about the misconceptions that a lot of women have as far as their fertility. And now we know where we can go to learn even more, where they can find you on your various platforms to learn more as well. So thank you. If you have any closing words you'd like to say, Dr. Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now a little bit of a trigger word for some people is advocacy or being a self advocate. But there's one message I could leave you with. If you're feeling dismissed or if you're having questions that aren't getting answered, don't just settle for that. I would encourage you to seek out information. I would encourage you to seek out resources and providers that are going to take care of you, whether it's me or somebody else. But I definitely think we're at a time with so much information at our fingertips that, there's no reason, hopefully, that women wouldn't feel empowered in talking to their healthcare providers.
Mhm, mhm. Well, thank you all again, and make sure that you like or share this episode with a friend, and have a wonderful rest of your day and tune in to the next episode. Take care.